Well, look what we have here. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you might recognize this car. This is my old 1994 Buick Lesabre Custom. I sold it about a year ago to a friend of mine. And she has since lost the job she had a kid, little baby, he's about 4 months now, I think. And she's going to be losing her apartment soon. She can't afford it no more. So she's had kind of a string of bad luck, and on top of that, the wheel bearings on this car are going out. So I'm going to go ahead and replace those for her so that she has some safe transportation for her little baby. Now, I've already done some work to this car. When I sold it to her, there was a big hole in the exhaust and a hole in the trunk, so the exhaust would just come straight up into the trunk and then into the passenger compartment. So I cut the exhaust off my 97 and just got a little adapter and put it on there. Works great. No more fumes in the car. The washers that are underneath the subframe there, 3 of those rusted off and almost had that sucker laying on the ground, so I replaced those a while back. It's had used tires put on, but they're starting to get a little worn. They're not in the best shape, but they hold air, so she can't really afford to do much, so I'm just going to go ahead and fix this up for her. And suppose I better pull her into the garage and get to work. Alright, back behind the wheel of the 94 Lesabre. Let's see how she starts. Not bad. She must be poor. She's only got like not even an eighth of a tank. Jesus. Well, let's see if we can pull her in and fix her. You know, she sure could have used one of them many, many nice rust-free cars that they destroyed for cash for clunkers. She's one of the people that could have benefited from one of those cars, and then she wouldn't have to drive this thing. 190,000 miles. Still runs good and drives good, but you know, it's getting up there and it's getting rusty. Looks like she got a big crack in the windshield too. Wasn't there when I sold it to her, but whatever. Let's go ahead and get started. There you go, yet another project. I got this here. I just pulled in. Got this engine I'm going to take apart here and try to fix up, laying around. Parts scattered everywhere. I got a transmission apart, rebuilding that. Oh, and then I got the ongoing projects that get done when they get done. The Oldsmobile out there, that needs work. Crown Vic out back. Yeah, what else? The Ford truck. Tell you, it never ends. And then as I was doing the transmission here, I figured I should have a parts washer, but I don't want to buy one, so I'm going to scrounge around here with all this junk and see if I can't build one. But anyway, back to the car. I had to replace the wheel bearings. Now, you can feel the play in it, but it's not too horrible. You know, if it was my car or my brother was driving it, I'd say drive it till the wheels fall off, but considering she's going to be having a kid in the back, probably not the best idea. So, go ahead and get started tearing this sucker apart. I don't know if you can see that very well, but it's just rust everywhere. Hopefully it'll hold up. I know it'll run forever because it's a Buick, but yeah, we'll see what we can do. Well, I got the wheels off on both sides. Brakes on this side don't look too bad. I'll go look at the other ones in a minute, but so she shouldn't need those. Now what I've got to do is take these bolts out of the back, the caliper bolts, and pull this caliper and the pads off and wire it up here. And then go ahead and take the rotor off, and then I can start taking the wheel bearing out. Alright, brakes are off on both sides. Brake pads look good on both sides. Now what I got to do is take this big nut off in the middle, and then put the car in neutral and turn this until this big hole here lines up with these bolts, and then I can go ahead and get a socket in there and knock them off. One thing I noticed just while looking around here, I don't know if you can see that, but there's oil there, and up underneath is a power steering cooler, and that's leaking. So it's a problem. It's not severe, but just going to have to remember to keep adding fluid to it. So I'll check that before it leaves. So let's get to it. There we go. I got that big nut off. I use an impact to do it. What I usually do is take some penetrating oil and spray on there first, and then I go ahead and zing it out as far as I can with the impact. And usually I have to let my compressor charge a few times to get it all the way off, but if you had a bigger compressor, it should come right off. So now I can put it in neutral and line up these holes and unbolt that. Well, here we are. I've got the ball joint disconnected on this side. Now what I've got to do is pound out this axle here, push it back through the wheel bearing, and then go ahead and take the wheel bearing off and take the axle off, as I'm replacing that too. And the boot's torn up there. So next step is knock that out and take the bearing off. Well, I've got it out. It took a hell of a beating to get it out, but I got it. One thing I did that you don't want to do is I mashed the end of a thread, so you won't be able to thread a new one on there, but not a problem because I'm replacing this whole thing anyway. Now if you weren't replacing it, you'd want to be careful, but since I already have a new one and I'm going to replace it anyway, I just swung like hell and knocked her out. So now I can go ahead and take the bearing out. Well, I've got the bearing out, no problem. What I did was I took out the 3 bolts in there and then hit the back with a hammer. As you can see, it ruins the bearing, but it doesn't matter, it's a shot anyway. Usually comes out in 2 pieces or more, depending on how bad it is. And here's the new one I got to slide in. Pretty simply, just put it in there, put the bolt on, tighten her up. But first I got to pop this axle off. And what you do is you get a pry bar in behind there, and you just pop it loose and pull it out. No problem. And there we go, axle's out. New one's right here. And this is what you've got when you're done. You just got to be real careful not to get any dirt in there, if you can. And then you got to pop it back in until it seats. There we go, shiny new bearings in, shiny new axles in. When you put the bearing in, make sure you get the ABS wire in the right spot. And now I can start putting it back together. Sweet. Well, there we go, this side's all back together. All I gotta do now is put the wheel on and tighten up this big nut. When you're tightening up this big nut, don't use an impact. Just use a regular ratchet or breaker bar, whatever, because you don't want to use an impact on this because it'll ruin the bearing inside there, and you don't want to ruin a brand new bearing. So just go ahead and get that on with a wrench and torque it down to spec, whatever that is for your car, and then you're good to go. Now I'll go ahead and jump the other side and finish that one up, and I'll be able to take it for a test drive. There we go, all done. I just got to open up the big door and take her for a spin and see how she works. Well, so far so good. Have to get her on the blacktop to be sure, but she runs.